Welcome to the TAPED podcast, the most orange podcast in the world. We are your hosts, myself, Michael.
And me, Miho.
And for today's edition of the TAPED podcast, we are going to be going over the usual formula: 4 albums, 3 new ones, 1 classic. And today's episode, we are going to be going over A Written Testimony by Electronica.
Woo!
After Hours by Jay-Z, and no, not Jay-Z, fuck's sake. I basically just spoiled the album already, fuck. No, After Hours by The Weeknd.
Woo!
I'm tired, leave me alone. And Code Orange with Underneath. And our classic, we have Hell Hath No Fury by Clipse.
Woo!
So, yeah. Which one do you want to start off with first?
Sure, we can do the big one. We'll do The Weeknd.
Alright, we'll get the Weeknd over with. Before we start though, just a quick synopsis on The Weeknd. Abel Tesfaye, better known as The Weeknd, is an alternative R&B singer and producer from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. This is his 4th studio album This is his 4th studio album after his 2016 album Starboy. And this one takes a more 80s approach. And I think we should just dig into it. So, let's start off with the opening track.
Kind of an 80s approach too, didn't it?
Yeah.
This one it's more like synthy, I'd say. This one.
Well, I mean, these synths feel kind of nostalgic to the 80s, to be fair.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think we should just start with the opening track, Alone Again. Do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, for me, the song, I think, takes too long to get, like, really interesting, especially production-wise. But I do think it does kick it up a notch. When the final 2 minutes, I think, when the song kind of kicks into gear with this kind of grimy beat, the bass, lush synths that kind of flow hand in hand with the vocals from Abel, and give the track a nice kind of nostalgic spacey feel. So yeah, I do like the closing section of the track, but I think it takes a bit too long to get interesting for me.
I pretty much have the opposite opinion here. I like this track, but flip around the liking it to the first half of the track. I do enjoy the really cool. I do enjoy the massive synth build up into the trap instrumental. This track is a tad bit overproduced, but I still like it. I think Abel's vocal performance was decent. His I can't speak today. What is wrong with me?
It's okay.
I feel like
we all have those days.
Yeah, his reverberated and vocoded vocals in the middle of the track are actually pretty cool, and they kind of fit the atmosphere of the trap side of the instrumental. And honestly, it's a pretty strong opener in my opinion.
I think it's a decent song.
All right, I gave it an 8.
I gave it a 6.
Next track, Too Late.
Am I starting again? Is this the pattern?
Yeah.
Okay. I think Too Late is a better track for me, in my opinion. I think it's got brilliant mixing, and the production is great. It complements Abel's vocals very well. Has like a similar airy synth aesthetic for the vocals to the first track, but I think it flows well into every section of the song. It flows really well into the kind of sweet sounding dancey chorus. I do think the bridge is off a bit. The melody almost doesn't match the tempo of the track to me. It throws me off a bit, but overall I think it's a pretty good track.
This one is a bit of a weird one for me. I really like this track. It's cool, it's atmospheric, it's got a really nice instrumental, and it feels kind of... Is it correct to say that it has kind of like a garage feel to it?
In a way, yeah.
In the drum patterns, and it's, there's some points in it where it feels like kind of 8-bit. I don't know why.
I do know. Yeah, I think garage was a good way to explain it.
Yeah, and some of the drums felt a bit 8-bit in some way. Mm-hmm. That's the way I see it, and I really enjoyed the Weeknd's performance on it. I thought the vocal effects were a bit much, but other than that, this is a really solid song in my opinion.
Rating?
9.
7. Damn, 9.
Yeah.
Next track though, Hardest to Love.
Hardest to Love, you go.
I think this instrumental is fucking. This instrumental kicks ass. It's like really synthy, ambient, but it's got this driving like industrial drum beat that kicks it all together. Abel's vocals are incredible. I think they they complement the instrumental very well. I think it might be my favorite track on the album. I think it's just it's nice and sweet and pretty. It's calm, but it just has the right amount of energy to kind of keep the track going. And yeah, I think it's a brilliant song. So
I would agree with you. This is an amazing track. This is my
Yeah.
favorite track on the album. Right, it's nostalgic as hell. The kind of like the synths are absolutely fantastic on it. They remind me a lot of the movie Blade Runner.
yeah,
The drum, there was like this one drum pattern on it that was kind of offbeat in a way, but it's actually really, it's kind of good. Like I really enjoy it.
Fuck with it.
Yeah, I love the chorus. The chorus the chorus is so good. Abel's vocals in general are amazing on this track, and
Yeah, agreed.
the lyrics are more about blaming himself for being the bad person in the relationship, and it's acknowledgement, which is kind of different from a Weeknd song. Like,
Yeah,
to be fair, it is.
yeah, it is.
And it's honestly a great track. I love this track. It's probably my song of the year right now.
Yeah. Whoa. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Good job, Abel.
This bitch a 10.
This bitch a 10. Whoa. I give it a strong 9.
Nice. That is a very good score.
Yeah. By my standards.
Yeah. Next track, Scared to Live.
This is honestly one of the less interesting tracks, in my opinion. I think the instrumental's nice, but the beat kinda, I think, fails to bring life into the track as the song progresses. It just kinda stays a bit monotone, in a way. And while vocally I think it is a good performance from Abel, the song was, I don't think, gripping enough to make for a memorable track among quite a lengthy track list. It kinda got lost in the mix there.
Personally, it's probably another one of my favorite tracks in the album. I do enjoy the ambient synths in the instrumental, and Abel's vocals again were great. And that bridge in before the chorus, I absolutely loved it. And the chorus itself was pretty powerful, I would say. I think this is probably one of Abel's best vocal performances on the album, in my opinion, and I do really enjoy it.
What would you rate it?
I gave it a 9.
I give it a 6.
This is a massive contrast.
Yeah.
Alright, next track is Snow Child.
Then I don't want to spoil too much. It'll get worse.
Mm.
Not necessarily with this album.
I think I know the one you're on about. Let's be real here.
Oh, we won't get into it. We won't get into it yet.
Let's just move on to the next track.
Yeah.
Snow Child.
Another track that's not really a standout for me. I think Abel's vocals once again are pleasant. They flow and shine through the song quite well. But the instrumental to me is just really dry, really fruitless. And as the song kind of goes on, it kind of fails to explore any new territory for me.
Yeah, this isn't my favorite track on the album. I do enjoy it still. It's got like kind of a trap kind of style to it, you could say. The synths are still pretty good. Feels more of like a stripped back song on pretty much before the rest of this album. And, you know, the lyrics are pretty dark. He's actually got kind of a flow going on, kind of like a rap verse going on. And there's some good bars here and there. I think he's came up with some clever wordplay on some tracks, but, you know, it's not my favorite, but I still really like it.
What would you rate it?
An 8.
I gave it a 5.
Okay. Escape from LA.
Yeah.
This is my least favorite track on the album. Do you mind if I take over this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
This one is my least favorite track in the album. I just found it very unengaging. It's another kind of trap instrumental, and, you know, it's kind of the samey kind of Weeknd stuff that he pretty much talks about on every single one of his albums. Although this one some lyrics on it just made me cringe a little. So this probably dragged it down to be my worst on the album.
possibly my least favorite. As well. I think the instrumental is once again. I don't think it's very interesting. I don't think it stands out. I think it's pleasant enough to make the track seem pleasant and nice to listen to, but there's not enough to make a must-hear track or a track that I'll be dying to listen to or get back to from this album. I think Abel gives off a good performance, but I don't think it's as standout as like Hardest to Love or some of the other songs in this album. It's just not particularly a memorable song, and I don't think it really explores anything that hasn't been explored already here.
I would agree.
I gave it a 5.
I gave it a 6.
Heartless.
One of the singles released from the album beforehand, and I still really like this single. I bumped it pretty much since it came out, and I still pretty much bump it. It's a trap beat. It's got the heavy 808s. The bass is booming, literally, because it was produced by Metro Boomin. And the Weeknd was decent enough on this. He had some questionable lines on this one in particular. I think I have one down here.
Go for it.
Do you mind if I ASMR this real quick?
You have to. There's no other way to do it.
Selling dreams to these girls with their guard down.
Ooh,
seductive. So that was a bit questionable, but other than that, there were some funny lines on there, and I still enjoyed the track.
He does have a lot of lines like that, but I like to think that they're at least somewhat self-aware. I think the instrumental is a lot less somber and quiet, and in turn, for me, it does seem a lot more interesting than the previous tracks. It actually, I think, elevates the track quite a bit, the instrumental does. I think Abel gives off a convincing, memorable performance, and I think it's complemented well by the spacey production and instrumental. Wouldn't be one of my standout must-listen tracks, but I think it is a good track.
I gave it an 8.
I gave it a 7.
Faith. You can go next.
Okay. I think the bassy synths on this track are a bit overdone, and I think they take a lot more from the instrumental than they bring for me. I think other than that, the instrumental is fine. Nothing much to really complain about. Abel's performance, while it's never bad, it's far from bad. It just seems a bit more on the spot and kind of hectic than a lot of the other tracks. And while I don't think it matches I just don't think it matches the instrumental that well at times, but I think at other times it does kind of blend well. It's a bit hit or miss depending on what part of the song it's on.
Well, I still really enjoyed this track. I do still enjoy the synthy aspects of it. In case you didn't know, I'm a bit of a whiny bitch when it comes to synths because I fucking love them. But I do think they were orchestrated very well on this track, and the ending to this track, I think, was the best part of it. I thought Abel's gave off a great performance, especially towards the second half of the track, and honestly, I did revisit this quite a lot. Although it's not my favourite, it's certainly a good track for me, at least.
Yeah, I agree, the ending. I did like the ending.
Yeah, I gave this track an 8.
I gave it a 6.
Blinding Lights.
Ooh, the big one.
The second single released from this album, and it is another one of my favourite tracks in the album. I love the instrumental. It's got this synth pop instrumental to it. It's catchy, it's fast paced. Abel's performances were absolutely catchy, and I absolutely loved the chorus as well. And those like ad libs before the big instrumental explosion. And it's a really good track. It's honestly the best single from the album. Yeah. And it's one of the best tracks from the album in my opinion.
I agree. I think this is my second favorite song. It's a brilliant track. I think the instrumental is easily one of my favorites of the year. I think it's equal parts dancey and fun as it is atmospheric and spacey. I think it perfectly balances on the line between the synths and the post-chorus are very catchy, very nostalgic, and I think that Abel matches this instrumental and the energy of it with an equally engaging and fun performance.
All right.
I gave it a 9.
I gave it a 10.
Ooh, damn, son.
In Your Eyes.
In Your Eyes. I think instrumentally it's a nice follow-up to the previous track. I think it's funky, it's fun, but it still remains pleasant and, drenched in nostalgia, but not enough to make it cheesy. You can always overdo that, and I don't think he does it here. I think Abel's performance is fun, it's catchy, I think it matches the instrumental pretty well. I don't think it's as good as Blinding Lights, but for me it captures kind of a similar era of music in a really fun way, and it definitely is another one of my favourite tracks on the album.
I would agree. This is another really good track on the album for me. I feel like this is the most 80s sounding instrumental, and it's a really decent follow-up to Blinding Lights. I thought that Weeknd gave a very good performance, had a really catchy hook. I absolutely love this track to death. It's still very nostalgic to me. This is a very nostalgic experience, a lot of these tracks, and I do really like it. I think it is it's another highlight for me, at least.
Do you hear the cat meowing at the door?
No.
Good.
I gave this track a 9.
Ooh.
Alright.
Save your tears.
Is it just me, or does the groove on this song kind of remind me of like Circles by Post Malone?
I never made that connection. I might have to re-listen with that in mind.
I don't know, it has kind of that same groove to it. It's
a nice instrumental.
Yeah, it's a very good instrumental. It's really groovy. It's catchy as hell. The Weeknd performance on this track was catchy as hell. Abel did a very good job. The chorus is pretty sweet as well. I really like the chorus. It's pretty nice. I do really like this track, although it's not one of my favorites.
I would actually say it is one of my favorites. I think the instrumental is really pleasant. I think it's not overly energetic and overly busy. It's a bit on the simpler side, and I think that leaves a lot of room for a good performance from Abel, and I think he definitely delivers on that front, and the whole track as a whole comes together quite nice.
Right.
I gave it an 8.
I also gave it an 8.
Woohoo.
Repeat after me. Interlude. This is I didn't score this interlude at all. It, because it's an interlude. Instrumentally, it doesn't really fit the album that much, in my opinion. It's got a nice atmosphere to it, don't get me wrong, and it's really solid. It's a well-made instrumental, but I just don't really see it standing out amongst some of the other great instrumentals that we got from the rest of the album. Yeah. And the Weeknd on this track, it's kind of tying in with this whole there's a concept on this album, and basically he's just asking this other person, just please come back. He's simping.
Oh, bro.
And
we can't be simping.
We can't be simping.
Yeah, I did actually score this. I think it was long enough to be worthy of being subjected to my score. But yeah, it's one of my least favourite moments on the album. I think the main issues are that I think the instrumental is a bit too busy than it should have been. I think Abel's performance is just neither exciting or memorable, and it seems like he's just doing enough to make this track pass. Lyrically, it's not very engaging in the slightest either. It's just a forgettable moment on the album, I think.
Fair.
Yeah, I did score it. I gave it a 5.
Alright, fair enough. The title track, After Hours.
This is a pretty long track, and I think overall it's quite nice, but I feel like it could have definitely been shorter and more stripped back. I think, in my opinion, the track only really starts getting interesting at the 2-minute mark when the beat kicks in and the kind of distant horn sounding synth starts dancing around it. At that point, I think the track is quite good. I think Abel gives off a more low-key performance, which is kind of elevated by the instrumental, which over time adds more layers to itself. The track, once again, I think seems to be a bit bloated at the end. I think the ending of the track, well, it was pleasant. I think it did drag on for too long. I think the few minutes in between the end and the beginning are great enough to still make this track very good in the long run, I think.
Well, this was my third favourite track on the album, right?
Okay.
Basically, I this is the darkest track on the album. It's dark, it's atmospheric. I really do like that like distant like melody in the back, you could say. Like it's pretty eerie, and it adds to the instrumental in a way, and the Weeknd's performance as well. He's kind of distant, but I do really enjoy his performance on this track, and I absolutely love like the pickup in the instrumental in the middle of the track, and I don't mind that it's 6 minutes long, but that's just me. I think this track is pretty well rounded, and it's one of my favorites on the album.
Fair enough. I still liked it. I gave it a 7.
I gave it 10.
Whoa. Damn.
Yeah.
Son. Final track, Until I Bleed Out.
Until I Bleed Out.
Yeah, I think it's a pleasant, somewhat layered, but I think rather an interesting way to end the album. I think the instrumental just completely overpowers Abel's vocals, and I think some of the mixing options in general just don't work very well. I think the track has some value to it, has some good moments, but I think, yeah, the mixing brings it down a lot for me.
I would agree, although it is a pretty decent opener in my opinion. I can agree that the mix is a bit off on this one. Wait, what happened?
You said opener.
No, closer, I mean, sorry. Fuck.
Same
Fuck.
thing.
No, they're not. No, they're not. Don't make me feel better.
Hey, if it's damn, then it is.
Okay. You get a pass for that one. You know, the beat is atmospheric, it's ambient. The Weeknd was pretty good on this, but although like the mix was pretty off in my opinion, but I felt it was a pretty strong closer.
Fair enough. I gave it a 6.
I gave it an 8.
Final thoughts. Should I start?
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I think this is a good album, but I do think it's way overhyped in my opinion. I think it brings forward plenty of pleasant tracks, and everything kind of focuses on the synthy aesthetic that in general is never overdone. It never overstays its welcome. I think he makes it fresh, he makes it fun, and there are a number of tracks that are fantastic and very memorable, such as Hardest to Love or Blinding Lights. But the album, I think, seems to play it safe far too often on tracks that seem just to do enough to like fit this atmosphere, to sound pleasant, but don't do anything for me to make them memorable or stand out or be cutting edge. And I think a lot of these like factors weigh in on me thinking that this really cannot be considered the Weeknd's best album. I still think the album is worth a listen. I think it's his most focused and cohesive studio album, emphasis on studio album to date, when it comes to just the overall aesthetic and direction. But I really don't see this album in the long run being his crowning achievement, and I think he's capable of more. I think this sound he has, it's a good sound for him. I think if he refines this more, I think he'll release something that I truly do love. But for me, this is just a nice nostalgia kind of drenched endeavor, and I think he's just capable of more, and I hope to see that in the future.
Alright. For me at least, this album is great, and I absolutely love the production on this album. While not very, maybe not as raw or as good as it was on, say, House of Balloons or something like that, I still do enjoy it quite a lot. I do enjoy the elements of synthwave, synth pop, and fusions of trap and alternative R&B. I think The Weeknd did it very well on this album. Although there are one or two tracks that are just a bit iffy and don't really kind of fit in the long run, there are plenty of enjoyable tracks here that I do often come back to that I think are great and are probably some of the Weeknd's best songs. Some of my favorite Weeknd songs, at least. If you saw my worst to best video, I don't think it's my favorite Weeknd album, but it's certainly one of his best, I would say. And I do think there are some great cohesive themes on this one. There's actually a pretty decent story written throughout the track. It's pretty well crafted, I would say. And overall, I think again, like the Weeknd's vocals are great. He's a great vocalist in general, and he actually fit the instrumentals very well. And I honestly do really enjoy this album. It's one of my favorites that's come out so far this year.
And if you're still watching this, check out Michael's review on his channel of this album and also his Weekend Worst to Best. Link in the description.
Thanks for the plug.
I have to. It all comes together, bro.
Yeah.
Final score?
I gave this a decent 8.
I gave it a strong 6. Since I picked first album, pick which one we do next.
Let's do a written testimony.
Alright.
Oh, I can't wait for this one.
Give us a bio.
Okay, J Electronica is a rapper and producer from New Orleans. A Written Testimony is his debut studio album that hardcore fans have been waiting a solid 10 years for. Since he signed to Rock Nation, people were guessing an album would come out, and 10 years later down the line, an album has come out. So, without wasting any more time, let's talk about it. Written Testimony, J Electronica.
Track 1 is a bit of a spoken word. It's called Overwhelming Event. I forgot to mention that. Bit of a spoken word kind of thing. It features samples from Louis Farrakhan, who, I don't want to get political, but he's a bit of a racist, anti-Semite scumbag. So
that's what I heard too.
Bit of a yikes for me.
That would be a yikes for me as well. Like, it's a orchestral and like piano type instrumental. You know, the sample is basically saying, you know, that like the black people are the true children of Israel. Like, and this kind of sets a theme of like religion going through this whole album. But again, the person saying it is a bit of a red flag, so, you know.
We won't get too much into that.
We will not get into that. Let's go to the intro track, The Ghost of Soulja Slim.
Am I starting off again?
I'll start it.
Okay.
You know, the instrumental is cool. It's got like a kind of a jazz rap vibe to it. Breaks into kind of an accordion sample. But the stock children cheering sound effect, please stop.
Oh my god, I was hoping you'd mention that.
This sound effect goes through the whole fucking album. Can we please? Why does this have... Apparently J Electronica like produced all of this himself. Jay, what was going through your mind when you thought stock children like saying yay would be fine?
Every 5 seconds.
But other than that, though, the person who opens the album is Jay-Z, in fact. Jay-Z killed it. His flow was on point, his lyrics were great, and then J-Elec came in. He had a great verse, in my opinion. He had really good flows. His lyrics were still tying with the concept of like religion and stuff like that, making decent religious references. And overall, I thought this is a great track. And it is my favourite on the album. Despite the fucking stock children.
I agree. Despite the stock children screaming, this is my favourite track on the album as well. I think the instrumental's cool. As you said, jazzy. I think it's a bit overblown with samples, however. Not only the stock children cheering. Jay-Z comes on here. I mean, gives off a really good, convincing verse, and then followed by a verse from J Electronica, which to me I did not find it gripping. I didn't find it interesting. I thought it was quite a poor performance. Okay. Why are you laughing?
I'm not laughing. I'm just...
Are you disrespecting my opinion?
Yes.
I
don't care that much. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's all I have to say. I gave this track a 6.
I gave it a 9. This would have been a 10 if there was no stock children sound effects. Let me just say.
I don't think I've ever heard someone say this would have been a 10 without the stock children sound effects.
Christ.
That may be a first.
Next track, The Blinding, featuring Travis Scott. The next track, it's pretty heavy in terms of instrumentation. Like, it has this like distorted bass and this like looping sample. But the second half of the track, in my opinion, is better. It has some more kind of psyche vibe to it. And J-Elec and Jay-Z were pretty good on this track. They did what they set out to do. They had some pretty decent verses. And Travis Scott shows up for like a really short thing, which, if you know Travis Scott features, Fuck me, man.
To me, I think the instrumental kind of cycles between two different things being completely fucking overblown or just completely lifeless and uninteresting for me. I don't think that Electronica and Jay-Z mesh together for a good performance on this. I think it's a bit all over the place, a bit sloppy, and overall this is just a bit of a mess of a track for me. Just dead silence.
I didn't even know that was you finishing. I gave it a 7.
I gave it a 3.
Bro, that's very cynical.
Come on.
I know it's your opinion. I'm trying to add a reaction here. I don't think it's a mess. I don't think it's a mess. All right, fine. Next track is the Never-Ending Story. I do enjoy the instrumental here. It was produced by The Alchemist, and it's pretty cool hearing Jay-Z rap over Alchemist production. Like, it's pretty abstract. I think it's pretty good. The strings are pretty slow. Well, I mean, the guitar strings, they get slower as track progresses. The sampling is pretty good. JLX was pretty good. I still enjoy JLX performances, and, Jay-Z overshadowed him on this one. But JLX had some clever bars, nonetheless. I still enjoy both their performances, but, it's alright, I suppose. It's a decent track.
I think this track was completely and utterly uninteresting. I think the instrumental for me was just all over the place. I don't think it explored anything. It just kind of was a mess all over the place, repetitive. I don't think Jay Electronica gave off a convincing performance whatsoever. I think Jay's verse was okay at best, but I think over this kind of lifeless instrumental, I don't think he could have done much better. Another track that I really did not like.
I gave it 7.
I gave it a 3.
Okay, never mind. Your opinion is not the same as mine, so you're automatically wrong.
Well, the next track is Shiny Suit Theory,
featuring The Dream. This is probably my second favourite track on the album. I love the jazzy instrumental, but can the cheering please fucking stop?
Cheering will never stop.
Christ, I can hear it already. With just the mere thought of it, I can hear it. But I really enjoyed Jay Electronica's verse. He still maintains the religious references, being consistent with this overall religious theme. But Jay-Z was fantastic on this track, no denying that. I think Jay-Z had the better performance on this one.
This is one of my least favorite tracks on the album. I think I've been using this word a lot, but I really think it applies here a lot. It's a mess. I think the instrumental, it's overly repetitive. It just gets grating on your ears. The vocals are just the instrumental completely overpowers the vocals. It's hard to even focus on what Jay Electronica is saying here. And yeah, I fucking hate this song.
Alright, I gave it an 8.
I give it a 2.
Next track.
I can sense the disappointment in the air.
Yeah. Universal Soldier. I need to stop being such a whiny little bitch. This is your opinion.
No, it's okay. We need drama.
Okay, fine. That's great. No, next track is Universal Soldier. The instrumental has this kind of triumphant feel to it. Feels kind of atmospheric, but although the track as a whole is a bit too long. And can the stock children cheering please stop? It drove me insane. Stop. It drove me insane. I literally got driven insane.
Do you think he found that on freesamples.com?
He went on splice.com
Splice.
and just found that sample randomly.
He looked up YouTube sample of children screaming.
And just used a YouTube to MP3 converter.
Yeah.
I could make it the same beat, let's be real here. But overall, I think that JLX still maintained a decent enough performance, still maintaining these religious themes, tying this all back to religion. And, Jay-Z was good again on these tracks. Jay-Z has probably been the highlight of the album so far for me. But, it's not my favorite on the album. I think it's just decent.
It's not the worst. I'll open up with that. I think the instrumental does have a nice atmosphere, but I think the execution, it kind of falls flat. Like, the track just drags on for way too long, and it doesn't really explore anything, doesn't go anywhere. Like, lyrically and vocally, I think it's fine, but the instrumental just kind of put me to sleep. I gave this track a 4.
I gave it 7. Flux capacitor, I mean. The beat. I'm just gonna say, I think this is one of the worst instrumentals on the album. It feels a bit messy. Like, the alarm sound effect, that chopped alarm sound effect just feels very abrasive. But I do enjoy this sample. Other samples on this beat. Jay-Z had a great verse, but the hook was a no-go. That shit was boring. But and I still enjoyed Jay Electronica's performance as well. I thought it was decent enough.
Yeah, this is my second least favorite track in the album. I think it's another case where the instrumental completely just overblows like everything else on the track. I think the percussion samples in it just sound like shit. I think the vocal samples don't fit in at all. I think the alarm sample is just like headache inducing. I think Jay-Z gives one of his weaker performances on the album. And yeah, as you said, the hook is just intolerable.
Yeah.
I gave this another 2.
I gave it a 6.
Fruits of the Spirit.
Another one of my favourite tracks on the album. It's short, it's sweet, I love the instrumental. I thought this is the only track on the album that Jay-Z doesn't feature. I think that Jay Electronica had a pretty good performance. I do enjoy Jay Electronica quite a bit on this whole album, in case you haven't noticed already. I thought he had good witty bars and just parts where he just started rapping in a different language kind of caught me off guard a bit, but I got used to it over time. I pretty much enjoyed this track.
Yeah, what you said about Jay Electronic's performance, I think, was the highlight of this track for me. I think the instrumental was fine, just way too repetitive. But in the end, I think it was a good thing that the track wasn't too long. And overall, it's an okay track. It's not. I don't find it very good. I don't find it bad either.
I gave this one an 8.
I gave it a 5.
Ezekiel's Wheel featuring The Dream. It's got these weird clacks in the beat and this kind of dreamy, slow aesthetic trying to be psychedelic. But it just went on for far too long, man. I think Jay Elec had a cool verse, but this one hit me home because, the Star Wars references. I'm a massive Star Wars nerd. And the Jay-Z hook was a no-go. Nah, cut that shit. No.
This was the most uneventful 6 minutes of my life. It's just this bare bones awkwardly mixed instrumental on repeat for 6 minutes with just random samples that barely fit in. I think it's the worst track on this album, hands down. And
I would agree.
I think the two J's do very little to redeem this. The fucking flows are garbage. They sound like they're both dead inside. This whole track just is sleep inducing.
They're both dead inside.
This track sucks.
I gave it a 6.
This is one of my least favorite tracks of the year. I gave it a 1.
I gave it a 6. Final track, API DTA. This is another one of my favorite tracks in the album. This one is pretty stripped back. It's lo-fi. The guitar sample on it feels kind of emotional. And I do enjoy Jay-Z and JLX's performances. More or less Jay-Z, although it was pretty monotone on his end. But other than that, I really like this track. It felt emotional. And I think that both Jays did a great performance on this track. And this is one of my favorite tracks.
I think the instrumental is quite pleasant. But as I've said this before on a few other tracks, it just goes nowhere. I think, as I said before, the flows, I think, don't drive the track home. They sound uninteresting. The two, like, they both sound uninterested. I don't think it's as bad as a lot of the other tracks on here, but it's not good either.
I gave this one a 9.
I gave it a 4.
Overall thoughts and opinions on a written testimony.
Starting with me. Whoa.
Let's get the negative one over and done with.
Fair, good point. I was excited for the album. I saw all the hype around it. But after sitting through it a few times and kind of digesting the whole thing, I just can't bring myself to think of this project as anything else than an absolute complete mess from start to finish. I think the instrumentals all over this are just completely sloppy, completely overblown. They're either way too busy with samples that make no sense or just completely lacking any sort of excitement or life. I don't think neither Electronica or Jay-Z are ever able to redeem this with performances that are a lot of the time equally uninteresting, sometimes equally all over the place. I say what you will, I think this is one of the low points in Jay-Z's career, in my opinion. And to say the least, I think it was a disappointing return for Jay Electronica.
While I do enjoy this album, there are aspects of it that are extremely messy. Like, for example, some of these tracks are a bit too drawn out and a bit too long for my liking. And some of the sampling in it is extremely questionable, and you already know what I'm on about. The fucking children stock sound effect, no. But other than that, positives from this album. There are some instrumentation that...
Positives, there are instruments.
Positives, there are instruments. Please excuse me, I'm tired. Fucking hell. But, instrumentation, I do enjoy quite a lot of the instrumentation on it, although it can be a bit redundant at times. I think that feature performances were just average. Travis Scott and The Dream were just forgettable on this album. I think that Jay-Z and Jay-Elec gave great performances on a lot of these tracks, but there were some performances that were pretty underwhelming, to say the least. But I do enjoy Jay-Elec's style, and I'd be willing to check out more of his previous efforts than this. But, I did overhype this album when it came out. But, after more listens and more of an analysis of it, I do think it's good. It's just not top tier of the year. It's cool enough for Jay Electronica, I would say. For Jay-Z, though, I think he gave great performances on this album, and he was kind of the highlights for some of these tracks here. But, I feel like it was kind of disappointing that this was kind of a Watch the Throne 2, you could say, but less ambitious. So, I do still like this overall, to be fair.
Watch the Throne 2, but Kanye was too busy praying.
Please, Kanye, help us.
Final score?
7.
I gave this a 3.
Bro, is that one of your lowest of the year so far?
Pardon?
Is this one of the lowest that you've given this year?
One of, I wouldn't say it's maybe top 5.
Fair enough.
I've heard some garbage.
So have I. Let's be real here.
Alright, last of the new albums, Code Orange, Underneath.
Code Orange is a metalcore band from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This is their 3rd studio album under the Code Orange name. They were originally known as was it Code Orange Kids or
Code Orange Kids, yeah.
Yeah. So this is technically their 4th album. And this is my first experience with the Code Orange, so I think we should just get right into it.
Track 1, Deeper Than Before.
This is just like a
bit of an interlude to the whole album.
Yeah, this is an intro track. It's just utter insanity, you could say.
Yeah, utter insanity. Track 2, Swallowing the Rabbit Hole.
I think this is a pretty strong start to the album. It has this aggressive instrumentation. It's glitchy. It's industrial. The guitars are fucking filthy good. I really enjoy Jamie's like throaty, aggressive vocals. There's sections in the vocal performances where there's just like calmness, while at the same time being extremely sinister. And I really like that whole vibe. I think this whole track is pretty good, and it is a pretty good starter to the album, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good way to start the album. I think right off the bat, it kind of sets the boundaries for what they're going to do on this project, that what's going to be different about this project, and what's going to differentiate it from like albums like Forever. They're obviously going for a more glitchy, more kind of electronic fused approach with like more clearer production right off the bat, and I think that this change is both for better and for worse, in my opinion. But when it comes to this track, the drumming is fantastic. I think the guitars are also great. They blend everything together. The track just has loads of energy, and the vocals powerful. They're attention grabbing, and it's a great opener. And it's possibly one of my favorite tracks on the album.
Nice. I gave this track an 8.
I also gave it an 8.
In Fear. This one, it's pretty similar to the last track. You got the aggressive instrumentation. Yet again, it's glitchy, has kind of a glitchy intro. It's industrial. Again, the throaty vocals fit very well. And it kind of, again, breaks into a more like commercial, like calmer section. It doesn't distract away from the track that much, and I think it's pretty good. I do really enjoy this track quite a lot.
Yeah, well, I respect the choice to heavily include all the electronic samples in the instrumentation, and I think it's an expected approach at this genre. I think here it just sounds a bit off. I think it throws me out of the immersion of the track at times. I think the guitar work is like really good, but it's nowhere near as good as it was on the first track. Vocally, it's honestly a bit hit or miss. The more subdued, kind of softer sung sections of the track with the ethereal synths, I think bring a nice touch to the track. They blend well with the overall direction of it. And overall, I think this track is a bit too over the place for me as I would have liked it to be. I think it kind of takes away some of the enjoyment I would have had here.
Alright, I gave this track an 8.
I gave it a 6.
You and You Alone. This is one of my favorite tracks in the album. I think that the drums and the guitars are absolutely awesome. I love the intensity and the aggression of the instrumentation. Has a kind of like a weird sound in it. It sounds a bit like a fucking cowbell for some reason. But that doesn't really distract much from me, and I really love Jamie's throaty vocals. They match the intensity of the instrumentation so well. It's one of my favorite tracks in the album. I love this track.
Yeah, the drums just kick complete ass. They sound incredible. The guitar riffs are equal parts energetic. They're enthralling. I think the vocals, especially from Jamie, are good. Wait, I'm getting missed. There's no other vocals here. I think they're mixed very well. I think everything comes together very well. I think the bridge kind of ties the track together nicely with the reverb. Yeah, overall I would agree that this is one of my favorite tracks in the album.
I gave this one a 9.
I also give it a 9.
Woo! Let's go. Agreement.
Hell yeah. For once.
Who I Am. It's a more commercial track. I still really enjoy the instrumentation on this one. I think it's very good. And Reba had a great performance on here. She did very well. I think she matched it quite well, and I really like this song as well. It's so far it's been back-to-back good tracks for me at least.
Yeah, I think this is a more kind of subdued industrial rock track rather than a metalcore track. I think the production is great and it really suits the track. It's well written, it's well performed definitely, especially vocally. Instrumentally as well, equally impressively performed actually. And yeah, it is one of the highlights for me.
I gave this one an 8.
I also give it an 8.
Cold Metal Place. This one, it's fast-paced, it's in your face, the background guitars are fantastic, and again, the throaty vocals match the intensity very well. I think this track is great. Again, it's been consistent so far. Happy the way it's been. I think it is a fantastic track.
I think it's not really among one of the most memorable tracks on the album. I think the electronic production seems a bit all over the place, almost forced to me, and I just think it doesn't come together as well as I wish it would have. Kind of takes away enjoyment from the whole track for me.
Alright. I gave this one an 8.
I gave it a 6.
Fair enough. Sulphur Surrounding. This one's like another kind of ballady type track that turns into an absolute jam. It still maintains that intensity in the second half of the track, and I think it is great. Reba and Jamie give really good performances. They were very good on this one, and it's another one. It's another great track in the album, I would say. Like, so far, this just hasn't been any misses for me, and I do really like this one.
Yeah, I think this has a really great instrumental. I think the vocals are fantastic. In the chorus especially, the chorus is powerful as fuck. I think they blend metalcore with alternative rock very well in this song. It all meshes together very naturally. And it's another one of my favourite tracks on the album.
I gave this one an 8.
I also give it an 8.
Woo! Agreement.
Woo.
The Easy Way. This one's one of my least favourite tracks in the album. It's, fast-paced production-wise, and it still stays relatively intense. And, the vocals are still pretty much the same as the last, but it's not one of the more memorable tracks in my opinion. In fact, it's probably one of my least revisited ones from this one. And it's just kind of forgettable in the grander scheme of this album.
Yeah, I agree. This is one of my least favourite tracks. I think, again, I don't really mess with the electronic samples on this track. I think they don't mesh well. I think they come off as a bit awkward and a bit sloppy. I think vocally on this track, it's nothing really to write home about as much as it doesn't reach the highs of some of the other tracks. The chorus just doesn't sound that great to me. And yeah, probably like my second least favourite track on the album.
Yeah, I gave this one a 7.
I gave it a 4.
The Erasure Scan. I hope I'm saying that right.
I think so, yeah. That's how I'd say it.
Well, this one takes no time to get right into the aggressive intensity of the instrumentation. And pretty much similar to most of the aggressive tracks in this album, are throaty in terms of vocals, and they match the extreme intensity of the instrumentation. Again, it's not one of the more memorable ones, but I still do really like this track.
Yeah, I think this is an example of a track where I think the electronics work perfectly with their metalcore style. It's just a short but sweet burst of just raw energy. It's got powerful instrumentals, especially the drums and guitars. Great vocals that match the intensity, and it's honestly one of my favourite tracks. Possibly my favourite.
I gave this one an 8.
I gave it a 9.
Woo, that's pretty good.
Is that the first time I gave a higher score than you? I think so.
No, you gave a 9 to You and You Alone.
Ah, shit, I did anyway there.
Alright, last one's Alive. This one, it's another aggressive track. The drums on this one are absolutely fantastic. I absolutely love the drums, and the vocals on this one are killer too. It's pretty similar to most of the tracks in the album, and it's not as memorable as the other ones, but it's still really good.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good track. I think the electronic samples and synths work decently in the mix, and the raw energy of the track is really captured well here. I don't think it really stands out as like a highlight of the album. It's not one of the best tracks, but it's far from the worst. It's got a kick-ass chorus, though. I love the chorus on this thing.
Yeah, the chorus is sick.
Overall, I give it a 7.
I gave it an 8. Ottoman Carbine. Another one of my least favourite tracks in the album. The instrumentation, it's pretty decent. There is a good performance from Reba, but it's just not all that engaging in a way. I kind of lost interest after the first minute and a half. It's pretty drawn out in my opinion, and I don't really find it all that memorable, so it's not really that intriguing to me. Much like the Easy Way. I don't know, it's not really one of my favourites. It's probably my least favourite track in the album, I'd say.
I agree with a lot of what you said. I think this track is fine. I think it's not bad, but I don't think it does anything that makes it really stand out from the crowd. I don't think it's memorable in the slightest. It's just kind of a track that I always glance over when I listen to this.
Yeah, I gave this one a 7.
I gave it a 6.
Back Inside the Glass. And this kind of ties into the cover of the album as well. That weird cover. It looks sick though. Again, it's another intense, fast-paced track. Again, Jamie's throaty, intense vocal performances again are great. They match the intensity of the instrumentation very well. I do really like this track. Yeah, that's all I really have to say for this one.
Yeah, I think this is another great track. I think it's got an instrumental that is equal parts atmospheric. It's also equal parts psychotic and just energy and rage filled. The overall sound of this song just comes together perfectly. And the vocals are fantastic. I think they tie everything together perfectly. It's another highlight for me.
I gave this one an 8.
I also gave it an 8.
A silver. The instrumentation on this one feels a bit more grand, if I'm correct on that. It's pretty cool. I do really enjoy it. Reba again had a great performance. She killed it on this track. Probably my favorite performance from her on this album, and I think it's a pretty decent track. There's not really much else to say.
I think it's decent. Yeah, I think the vocal samples and the instrumental sound quite cool. They're very unsettling, kind of put you on the edge of your seat. I think the vocals are fine. But the whole song, once again, it's not one of the most memorable tracks. Especially after the previous track, which was fantastic. I think it kind of sounds a bit, honestly, generic, alt rock at times. But it's fine. It's a good track. Just wouldn't be one of my favorites at all.
I gave this one an 8.
I gave it a 6.
Final track, the title track, Underneath. And this is a very strong closer to the album. In fact, it is one of my favorite tracks in the album. I love the build-up in the instrumental to this, into the intense aggression that we normally expect. And I think that Reba on the build-up into this kind of instrumental change-up was great. And Jamie again comes in with the great, aggressive throaty vocal performance. Matches again the track very well, and I think this was a very strong closer. It's another more commercial track. I don't mind that much. I think it's great.
To me, everything except for the chorus on the song is garbage. I think the electronic instrumental is a complete mess. I don't think it comes together in coherently in any way, shape, or form. The chorus I think is great, but it's just kind of instrumental. It's not good. The whole album was kind of leading up to this mainly electronic instrumental with these slight kind of implementations of glitchiness and industrial metal throughout. But I think this kind of ultimate finale is just it doesn't capture the essence of I think that style that they were going for. Vocally, I don't think it's great either. Instrumentally, poor. I think it's just a disappointing way to end the album, in my opinion.
Huh. I gave it a 9.
I gave it a 3.
Bro, the contrast.
This is a very contrast-filled episode.
It is indeed. Alright, overall thoughts and opinions on Underneath.
Am I doing them?
Yeah.
All right. I think I think that the more glitchy and electronic kind of industrial sound of Underneath is an expected progression for the band, their style of metalcore. I also believe that Code Orange's attempt at this approach is in every way respectable, and I think it has potential to be something really great. I do, however, think that this record is a bit awkward and kind of uncertain in its execution. at times the album's kind of glitchy production style delivers moments that like elevate and emphasize the power, energy, and like unpredictability of these tracks, but other times it just ruins the flow and the atmosphere of the track and just kind of seems a bit forced. I do think that there's plenty of potential here, and in this sound I think there's potential for Code Orange to still wow me as much as they did on Forever, which was one of my favorite albums of the last decade. But this time, with this new updated approach, I think they just didn't capture the essence of what I think Code Orange was. I hope that they improve on this sound, because there are tracks here that were fantastic, and as I said, it certainly has potential to be great, but this endeavor comes off as a bit unrefined for me, and I think the electronics kind of take away a bit of the enjoyment I had with this album.
Well, personally for me, I never listened to a Code Orange album before this, and I thought it was a pretty strong introduction to the band itself. I actually might check out Forever pretty soon.
You have to.
I will. I do enjoy the fusions of electronics and like in glitchiness into like this kind of industrial and like aggressive sound of metalcore. I think there were some really great standout tracks on this album. There were great moments of instrumentation, great vocal performances from Reba and Jamie. I thought they were fantastic. I really enjoyed a lot of this album. I thought it was fairly consistent. It was strong front to back, although there was maybe like 2 tracks that I wasn't blown away by. I still thought they were decent. I'd say I'm happy with this introduction to Code Orange's music, and I'll be looking out for what they're doing in the future, and obviously going back looking at their previous works. I'm excited too. Overall, I think it's a pretty nice, aggressive, intense metalcore album that has really cool fusions of electronics. I don't mind them as much, to be fair. I know they're kind of a halter in the enjoyment of the record, but ultimately they don't halt it as much for me as it does for you say.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I think it's a strong album. I do really enjoy it. It's probably like top 10 for me this year.
Overall rating?
I gave it an 8 out of 10.
I give it a decent 6.
Alright.
We'll get into the classic now, but do you want to tell everyone listening what your favourite album of the week was?
I think it was quite obvious that it was After Hours.
Yeah, I agree with you. After Hours was my favourite album of the week.
Ah, sick.
Now to the classic.
Hell
Hath No Fury from
No
Clipse.
Fury. If you don't know, Hell Hath No Fury is a classic album from the 2000s made by rap duo Clipse. Clipse is a, like I said, rap duo consisting of brothers Pusha T and No Malice, now known, well, Malice previously, now he's known as No Malice. They're from Virginia, and this is their second album under Clipse, and this album was entirely produced by Pharrell, in case you didn't know. And I was really excited to check this out because, personally, I think this is a bit of an underrated classic. So, yeah, without wasting any more time, let's talk about Hell Hath No Fury. First track,
one.
We Got It For Cheap, the intro. First of all,
am I starting
this beat is amazing. I'll go first. This beat is great. I love the organ sample in the instrumental. I think Pharrell killed it on production. And Pusha had a great verse, and pretty much the same from Malice. You know, it's talk about their coke raps, like as you would expect, since, you know, it's Pusha T we're talking about here. And I think, you know, Pusha and Malice had great performances, great verses, and I think it's a great intro.
Yeah, I think this is a brilliant track with, as you said, great verses from both Pusha and Malice. The instrumental is fucking sick. I love the kind of hand drum sampled beat. It adds a nice fun flair to the track. And so do the spoken word sections, actually. I think they add a lot to the track. It's just an entertaining track through and through, and a great way to kind of set the atmosphere and get you hyped up for listening to this album.
Yeah, this one a 10.
Whoa! I gave it an 8.
Sick. Next track, Mama, I'm So Sorry. Again, Pharrell killed it on the production. Pharrell is underrated as fuck, let's be real. The accordion sample is great in the instrumental. I think it is sick. Pusha's verse was cold as fuck. I think it was fucking brilliant. And Malice, again, killed it too. I feel like Pusha outshined Malice on this track, but they both had great verses. Overall, another great track.
Yeah, I think this track is even better than the first. I think the instrumental is fantastic. It's got this kind of really unique, choppy accordion sample with these very organic sounding drums. And I think that probably makes it one of my favorite instrumentals on this album. And once again, more very, very strong eccentric performances from both Pusha and Malice.
I gave this one 10.
Woohoo! I give it a 9.
Sick. Alright, Mr. Me Too. You know, the instrumentation is it's got like a sinister vibe going on with it. It's pretty digital. Pharrell, again, fucking killed it. Pusha and Malice go fucking hard over this instrument. They had some fucking clever bars, some cold deliveries. I think they were fantastic. Fucking, like, I actually prefer Malice's verse over Pusha's in this one, but they both did fucking great. I think this is another great track.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's got another very unique instrumental. It's kind of electronic-y, bassy. It's kind of machine-like, but at the same time, it's quite moody and it's almost kind of ambient in a way. It sets a nice tone for the track, and I think Pusha and Malice both performed his instrumental very well. I agree with you. I think Malice actually outshined Pusha on this track, and the hook is catchy as fuck.
I gave this one a 10.
Woohoo! I gave it a 9.
Sick.
Boy.
Alright, Wamp Wamp. featuring Slim Thug. I just wrote down this one, pots and pans type beat. But it still sounds
in the best
great.
way possible.
It still sounds great. Pharrell killed it again on the instrumentation. It's got like kind of a tropical kind of sound to it. I don't if that's a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
And again, Slim Thug's hook was kind of off-putting at first, but it grew on me quite a lot. And Pusha had a really cool verse.
The instrumental on this is insane. I agree with what you said.
Yeah.
Percussion, I can't even put my finger on what's happening there with the percussion, but I fucking like it. The drum sounds strange, and I love how the kind of coin shaking sample is mixed in with the beat. Kind of reminds me of Money by Pink Floyd in a weird way.
It actually does. That's what I thought when I heard it too. It actually does remind me of Money by Pink Floyd. Again,
it all ties it together. Or Cash Machine by Dram. Remember that track?
I have not listened to Dram in ages, bro. I want to
go
back and listen.
That track was fire.
I know. Dram is underrated in general. I want to go back and listen to more Dram.
Dram's fucking fun.
Yeah.
It all ties together really well with this kind of synth, I don't know how you say it.
It's like a
synth kind of melody that's kind of wailing around.
It's kind of like what's that drum that they have in like fucking what's it called? Like in some reggae songs, they have like a weird kind of tropical drum. What's it called? Yeah,
I think that I forget what it's called, but
it sounds great either way. And again, like Pusha and Malice killed it. Malice more than Pusha on this track, in my opinion. And you know, Pusha was cool, but I feel like Malice absolutely fucking killed it on this one.
Yeah, I think they both gave really convincing performances yet again. It's a very good track.
Gave this one 10.
I give it an 8. I have a feeling I know what your final score is going to be.
We'll see. Right around.
Everything from now on's a fucking 0.
Right around Shining featuring Abliva. You know, the pianos and the weird warped vocal sample sound great together. Again, Pharrell on the production. Pharrell is killing it. I think that Pusha, Leva, and Malice killed their verses on the track. They were really good, and it's another great track. And I think you already guessed what my score is going to be.
It's hard to say. But when it comes to my opinion, I think the instrumental, very strange. It's kind of unsettling and wailing, and it sounds like it's straight from a horror movie. But the boys kill this track again. They give the track just a kind of different kind of energy than the instrumental does, and I think it all blends well together. And yeah, it's definitely a highlight for me.
I gave this one a 10.
Woo! Surprised. I gave it a 9.
Dirty Money. This feels more 2000s than anything else on this album. Like, the piano feels kind of dated and kind of like reminds me of like something that came out like, say, fucking, I don't know, fucking Soulja Boy would rap over. Like, you know, I think it was alright. It wasn't the best beat, but I still think that Malice and Pusha killed it. More so Malice on this song than Pusha. I think they both gave great performances, but I feel like Malice impacted me more on this track than Pusha, to be fair, but they both fucking killed it.
Yeah, I think that the instrumental's fine. I don't think it's one of the best instrumentals. It has a very catchy hook, and as you said, both of them kill it again. I actually agree. I prefer Malice's verse on this thing, and I think it's not one of the best tracks, but it's still a good track.
Yeah. I give this one a 9.
I give it a 7.
Hello New World. The beat feels very atmospheric on this track. The drums on this one are absolutely sick though. Fucking love the drums on this one. And again, Pusha had a pretty like deep verse, and Malice was pretty good as well. And you know, Pharrell had a hook on here, and it had kind of an uplifting feel to it, all three of their contributions to it. Personally, I really enjoyed Pusha's contributions to this one more than Malice or Pharrell, but they did great either way.
I love the fucking instrumental. It sounds, as you said, very atmospheric and very unique. It sounds almost like you put a southern hip-hop drum beat over like an SNES game soundtrack in a way. Oh fuck, I dropped my USB. Pusha destroys this verse. Absolutely destroys it. The hook is fucking kicks ass as well. Very unique. Yep, I give this one a 10.
I gave it a 10. Boy.
Woohoo!
Keys Open Doors. Fuck me, my favorite track on the album. I absolutely love the like ethereal background vocals in the beat. And that hook is catchy as fuck. That Keys Open Doors like chop thing is great. I fucking loved it. I think Pusha had a great like aggressive verse. Like I fucking loved it. And Malice had a great verse too. But Pusha stood out more to me on this one. But it was fucking great. I absolutely love this track. It is underrated as fuck. I think it's... Well, go ahead.
I think the instrumental is awesome. The kind of ethereal, angelic vocals bring it together with this just funky ass beat. And once again, Pusha and Malice don't slow down at all. Top form. Another fantastic track.
Gave this one a 10.
I gave it a 9.
Sick. Ain't ya? Like, again, Pharrell is killing it with these beats. Pharrell is a god. Let's be real here. I'm starting to sound
his production is completely underrated.
Severely. He's like the second coming of Kanye. I think Push and Malice and the Re-Up Gang fucking killed it. They all had great contributions to the track. It feels like a great hype track, to be fair. But Malice went in on this one. Malice was great. I think that this is probably one of my favorites on the track as well. I mean, not on track, the album as well. And it's really solid. Again, another great track.
For me, this is probably my least favorite on the album.
Fair enough.
I think the instrumental is good. It's great actually, but I think it doesn't really stand out as much in like the grand scheme of this album. I think it would have been a standout track on an album less filled with just completely like off the wall, interesting and impressive instrumentals. But among the track listing it's surrounded by, I think it kind of falls behind. The hook isn't as good as some of the other tracks, in my opinion. The rap performances, though, can't say much negative things about them. They do a very good job with what they're given here.
Alright, I gave this one a 10.
I gave it a 7.
Next track, Trill. The instrumental has like this kind of like dirty, like alien-y kind of synth in it. You see Lil Uzi, this is how you do like an alien synth track, right? I think it's great. Pusha had some great fucking wordplay on his verse, and again, Malice went in. I think both of them had great performances, and they fit this instrumental extremely well. I think it's great. Another great track.
Yeah, I think this instrumental definitely sounds very 2000s, but it's an interesting kind of take on that style. It sounds almost spacey, very atmospheric, and brilliant performances from both of them, especially Pusha, who again destroys this track. Yeah, it's another one of my favorites.
I gave this one a 10.
I gave it a 9.
Chinese New Year. This shit opens up pretty funny too, considering that it opens up with like a fireworks sample, but it can also be interpreted as gunfire as well, because, you know, like, Clipse as a group are a pretty street fucking rap group. Basically, again, there's another kind of like dirty synth kind of in the instrumental. I think it's great. Pusha, again, killed it. Same with Malice. They're absolutely fantastic. And it's another great track, and a pretty memorable one at that.
Yeah, I think it's another really good track. It doesn't really stand out, but once again, it's not at its own fault. I think there's just some insane performances and tracks on this album. I think Pusha and Malice give fantastic performances. And yeah, love the beat. Love this track. I give it an 8.
Give it 10.
Ooh.
Nightmare, the final track. It's got kind of like an R&B kind of like slow jam to it. Like, Pharrell did the hook again, and although it was kind of off-putting at first, it did grow on me heavily. Pusha had a pretty decent contribution too, but Malice had a pretty emotional verse, and I think he had the best verse on this track in general. I think it's a brilliant closer and a great way to end the album.
Yeah, I agree. I think this was a fantastic closer. I think the hook is actually not from Pharrell. I think it's actually from the other feature, Bilal.
Is it? I thought it was...
Yeah. I think that was him on the hook.
Sounded like Pharrell. I don't know why.
I think Pharrell was on the bridge. I think this is a really pleasant, kind of low-tempo instrumental. To finish the album off, Pusha and Malice finished the album with just very memorable performances, very memorable lyrics, and the kind of reverb distance bridge from, I think it's Pharrell. Do we have to look this up?
No, don't look it up. It's fine.
Okay.
Pharrell or the other feature. Doesn't matter. It was still good.
Yeah, that doesn't change the track. And yeah, it's a brilliant closer, and it's probably my second favorite track on the album.
Sick. You can already guess my score.
I think you gave it a light 7.
I gave it a 0. No, I gave it a 10. What do you mean, bro?
It's a very strong 9. I give it as high of a 9 as you can get.
Sick. Final thoughts and opinions on Hell Hath No Fury by Clipse.
I think on this album, Clipse kind of, and the Neptunes, production from the Neptunes, kind of bring this southern hip hop to like familiar and proven, yet at the same time very unique and exciting places. I think the production is in many ways a product of its time, but yet it sounds like nothing else before nor after really did. Like many thanks to the Neptunes for that, Pharrell and Chad Hugo. And on top of this, Pusha T and Malice are both on top of their game. They flex their lyricism and performance muscles all over these tracks and propel these already brilliant instrumentals to even greater heights. And I think it's an absolute must-hear in the world of 2000s hip-hop.
I surely agree. To me, however, this album is a fucking underrated masterpiece, I would say. I think that it's a southern hip-hop epic, that features cold and great street performances from Malice and Pusha T, on top of some of Pharrell's best production, I would say. Pharrell killed the instrumentation, and fucking Pusha T and Malice went fucking hard on a lot of these instrumentals. I think it is amazing. And it's a shame that everything transpired like after the breakup of Clipse, because like Clipse could have been the best to do it if they were still a thing, you know? Like there's some whole shit that went down with them, and like their manager being arrested and sentenced like 30 years in prison.
Jesus.
And Malice found God, so he didn't want to he didn't really feel comfortable talking about, you know, coke raps and stuff like that anymore, which is a respectable decision. If you want to go by your faith, go ahead. And overall, I still think that Clipse are an underrated duo, and I think that, you know, Push and Malice are fucking brilliant. They're some of the and this album has some of the best like rap material, I would say, that came out in the 2000s. It's certainly one of the most underrated albums of in hip hop in general, in my opinion, I would say.
Final score?
0.
Okay.
Nah.
Thanks
for
watching the TAPED podcast.
This bitch a 10. This bitch is a 10 for me.
I also absolutely love this album. I wouldn't go as far as to give it a 10. I give it a strong, very strong 8 to a light 9.
Alright. That's a very respectable score. Can I
Definitely
announce...
my highest of the week.
Sick. Can I announce next week's albums?
You wanna? Oh yeah, go for it.
Alright, so for next week's episode, we are going to be talking about these 4 albums. We got Dogleg with Melee,
Woo.
Baxter Jury, The Night Chancers,
Woo.
The Garden, Kiss My Super Bowl Ring,
Woo.
and the classic Nevermind by Nirvana.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, subscribe. Check out my channel, Michael's channel. Especially Michael's, he does a lot more than I do on there.
But don't give me all the praise. You did make a really great Dan Deacon review. Let's be real here.
Yeah, I made one.
Make another one, please. They're actually good.
All right. I'll work on it. Not much else to do, so I'll work on something. But
what
yeah,
do you mean?
anyways,
You got your college work to do.
Oh, plenty. If you enjoyed, check out some of our other podcasts. Tune in next week if you're interested in any of the albums we're going to be talking about. Next week, actually, it'll be on Sunday. Might be uploaded later, but soon. Yeah, so
sooner rather than later. Soon. Let's just say that.
And yeah, thank you all for tuning in. See y'all soon.
See ya.